What is going on, fam? The boys have been delayed. It's been hectic lately because of shows, but finally, the man, Crabtree, the mundane, huge success in bodybuilding yourself as a competitor and also as a coach. Huge, one of the biggest coaches in Australia. Now moving overseas, and you have some clients overseas as well.
Yeah, probably maybe 15% of
Yeah.
the total of athletes that I work with are overseas, a little bit around the States and a couple in the UK as well.
So a huge international coach. So just tell us a little. Obviously, a lot of people that listen to this probably know you already, but just explain a little bit about you and how you got into coaching and where you came from, how you got into
Um,
bodybuilding.
yeah, I come from a background in sports. I just grew up playing sports, all sports, predominantly footy. So kind of just went through the pathways that you would playing, reasonably competitive junior football, Aussie rules.
Yep.
And had the typical cliche injury when I was 15, 16, and through rehabilitation, I got into training. And then from there, it just kind of snowballed into initially, I was just kind of working with friends of mine that had been through similar experiences with regards to like injuries and then trying to put on muscle and they might have been doing that because they were trying to continue their athletic pursuits or they wanted to just develop their physique and slowly over time as I probably progressed in my own bodybuilding, it kind of just niched more and more towards that's what I was interested in, so that's where my learning and my time investment went, but then also just interacting with other people through bodybuilding within Adelaide and the rest of Australia. Like it's kind of weird now in 2026. I feel like I've been in the bodybuilding industry or the fitness industry for a long time. I mean, I went to my first Arnold's in 2015, and I remember being obsessed with
Is that the Arnold's here, or are you talking about the one in UK or
in
America?
Melbourne.
Oh, Melbourne, yeah.
Yeah, so I remember going there. I think that might have been the second year. I think they had it in 2014, 15. I went 2015 and then just kind of snowballed from there, really. Like I was obsessed with the Steve Cooks, if you remember, and
Yeah,
those
I
type.
remember Steve Cook. Fuck, 'cause he's still going. He used to be a huge sponsored athlete by Optimum Nutrition and that, and feature
Yeah,
on Men's Health all
he
the
was
time.
big. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I just kind of just enjoyed the industry more and more. But yeah, now I remember thinking like I'm such a young kid in this world, or at least within Australia, and now it's like 10 years later, and I feel like I see new people coming in all the time, and then there's people that have kind of transitioned out of bodybuilding that I kind of remember all of a sudden and think like I haven't thought about that for a long time. So despite only being, what is it, 27, I feel like I've been around, hanging around the place for a while.
Yeah, you've ever since I've known bodybuilding, you've been around.
Yeah. So I'm just fortunate. There's definitely a lot of luck involved with being able to work with the right people at the right time, or, I think I probably initially, really early on back in, first starting coaching with bodybuilders, um, got by before I'd put anybody on stage with being very personable. And from there, I think I built up my education with my own interests and what I was actually invested in learning about. And I've never really had any ego to try and, know everything or assume everything. I've always been someone, even with my own athletes, who I'm really keen on learning more and understanding what I don't know. And I think that's just led me to have success because I've never just come at it from that kind of more egotistical way.
Yeah, so you reckon that's what separates you from others? That you just never take, you've always been sort of humble, I guess.
I
You know what you
suppose,
know, and you know where you need to improve.
yeah, I always look at
Because you're not an
bodybuilding.
average coach. You're you're up there now. You're on the top tier. So why do you
Thank you.
think you've gotten there? What separated you? Is it because you've just done you? You've never tried to be something you're not?
I think if I was being completely honest, and it probably sounds like, oh, he's trying to be really humble. There is a lot of firstly timing. Timing, very lucky that when I was 20 years old, I decided to work with a coach who's been a significant mentor to me, even indirectly, Dean, who's obviously Cam's coach and
Mm.
whatnot. like Dean's never, specifically mentored me, or we've never had, calls about coaching specifically, but just, becoming good friends with him through coaching and, his education passed down, secondarily, even the way he kind of articulates things has had a lot of, or presents himself has had a
Mm,
lot of effect on me. And then I think having been in the industry myself, since like the point of difference being I was posting about my own journey back in 2013 and 14 and 15. And when I was in school, it was, oh, what's this kid doing? Like he's small and, no muscle. But when I started to get into a position that I was able to coach individuals, like for instance, like a Liam, it was, oh, Taylor's been doing this for a while and he's gone through similar things that I've gone through. So I feel like there's a connection there, and I was able to kind of get my way in there. So I think I probably positioned myself in the coaching space a year or two before it started to explode, and luckily had a really great mentor as well. And like you said, I've always been just exceptionally invested in just knowing as much as I can, and I always like even. Still in 2026, and like you say, I've been lucky to have a lot of success. I still think to myself sometimes, like, is this me, or is it just a coincidence that is like, that it happens? It's that imposter syndrome where, you see the repetitive success and, you see the development of your athletes over a long period of time, but it can feel because you are so aware of how much more there is to know or how much better you can be. And I don't think I'll ever not be like that. I think, I've had this conversation with Dean himself, and it's very much as soon as you start thinking you are, where you need to be or everything, that's when you start to, fall to the wayside. So,
mm.
but I've been that way always, just constantly, what can I do more, or how can I be better, or what more can I learn? Just because I enjoy it, not anything other than that.
Yeah. And yeah, because you've got a few key clients, like even some of your clients have even moved out of Australia as well. Like I had Liam on the podcast, and I've
Yeah,
obviously had Dean on, your coach.
yeah.
But yeah, so they're obviously, Dean, you've learned from Dean, your clients are learning from you. So you're sort of, passing on, you're becoming what Dean was to you.
Yeah, there's that kind of carry-on effect or after effect that can come from Dean. And obviously, Dean's had a lot of learning from another individual. So it does. I think if you're really good at what you do, you do elevate your athletes. And again, like there's individuals I work with that aren't coaches that just simply want to be told what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. Where there's other individuals that are more interested in the why behind, the reason of that we're doing something or we're manipulating something in a specific way. Um, and I really love working with either or, but it has been nice. Like I've seen a lot of athletes that I've had, the fortunate ability to work with almost just change their lives through coaching, whether it's a Liam, when I first started coaching Liam, he was working in Derrimut. So,
Yeah,
there
Port
was that
Adelaide.
camp.
I'm sure you used to know each other.
Yeah, yep. How are you, mate? I don't think you can hear us yet.
Yeah. He's got the same coach as you.
Yeah.
Get
Is
me!
Can you
Yo,
hear us?
Can you hear us?
Yep.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Cool. I'm
G'day.
just
How are you,
saying
mate?
you and Crabtree got the same coach.
Oh yeah.
So it's just
Oh
like having Dave there anyway.
yeah, same, same.
Everyone's coached by fucking Dean. Hey, I just want to take a quick second at time out the podcast to introduce Amino's Protein. Use code AGHOSTMAN to get your 5% off. Obviously, you're the most busy you've ever been right now with your success. So who were you before coaching? Like what was your like job prospects?
I was just in school.
Yeah,
I was just in
yeah,
school. I finished in 2016. But yeah, I guess if someone was to attach me to something specific before bodybuilding, it would have been footy,
yeah.
Aussie
Like you're
rules.
saying,
That was pretty much my identity from 4 years old to 15. Um, and that's what I thought I was going to do. I thought I was going to play AFL and all the rest of it. And
yeah. Who's your team?
Essendon, unfortunately.
Hey, everyone has their years.
Yeah. But No, that was pretty much me before bodybuilding, and I finished school and just worked around the place, worked at Massive Joe's for a little bit and whatnot, and worked at some other supplement stores. And when I moved to Sydney, I worked for ASN. So I've been involved in a lot of different pieces of the industry for a while.
Yeah, so you told us how you got started in coaching. Was there any early struggles? Like, did you want it as a job straight away? Like when you were just starting getting clients, was it hard at the start, or did it
I
just
think I was
naturally progress well?
I think I was really lucky that I didn't start coaching now or didn't start coaching in the last 2 years when it's become, just this plethora of overload of coaches. If I I would have seen the rapid success that some people can have or do have, and I probably would have been demoralized at why I wasn't having that success because it seems like it's happened overnight with my own coaching, and I can understand how it looks that way externally. But I started coaching, like I was saying, I started coaching my friends who were still playing footy in 2016. So that was year 12. Not that I was doing a great job, but better than what they were
Yeah.
getting from, some
So was
voluntary
that nutrition
accountability.
only, or were you doing their sort of like their resistance-based stuff work as
No,
well?
I was more so just programming them what I was doing if I'm being completely honest. Like it was very
Oh.
similar to what I had done through my rehabilitation or whatnot. Like I had a general like from a footy sense, I had a general understanding of, how they could at least build their physique,
Mhm.
since I had done that to a certain extent. But um I didn't coach my first athlete on stage until 2021. And that was more so just a friend was like, I trust you enough for you to learn in this process. And I'd wanted to do so. So that's 2016 to 2021. I was trying to make it work. That's 5 years, 6 years of trying to make it work. And I was working with a lot of Gen Pop, which don't get me wrong, like there's a lot of value in, being able to elongate someone's life or correct certain behaviors that they've had for many years, and you can feel very fulfilled from that. But with the education and the understanding that I had and wanted to continue to have, I wanted to kind of transition into more prep coaching. But there was a couple of times there where I'm like, it's just not going to happen. That I'm not on this level with the gurus and whatnot. So if I had have been coaching these days, I probably would have been really frustrated at how long it took. But for
Mhm.
me, it just felt normal because there wasn't that rapid success of coaches at that point. It wasn't like I've seen coaches come into the industry and, over the course of 6 months go from zero athletes to 100 through
Mhm.
whether it's ads or AI or whatever, it is they're
We didn't have
doing.
social media when you started either.
Yeah, well,
So,
it wasn't, I didn't even create my coaching page until like 2 years after I put an athlete on stage. So,
Mhm.
It
um,
also like, what do you define as success in
exactly.
coaching?
Mm.
Like, is that a monetary value or is it actual athletes and like results?
I
Yeah,
think
athletes' results and just being respected in the game.
I think at this point for me, it's even more than just athletes and results. Like it's almost the fulfillment that that the athlete I'm coaching has.
Mhm.
Like you get inquiries, right? And I've got inquiries with really well developed athletes who may have competed in the IFBB a few times, and I've said like I don't think that we're the best fit. To bring them on would have been exposure for my coaching, but I'm not going to be able to have the manipulability or control that I would have because they have these preconceived ideas about it needs to be done this way and this is how it's working with this coach. Certain individuals like that more so want you to just kind of tell them that what they're doing is correct rather than, really give them a
Yeah.
different viewpoint. And so I've been lucky enough to have, athletes come on board where I can change the way they perceive certain things, whether it's pharmacology or whatnot. But, I get much more fulfillment of onboarding somebody that they might be, you might look at them and think they're never going to be anything. They're just an amateur, they're 20 years old or 25 years old or whatever they are. They're overweight or what, but they have this immense drive to be their best. And
Mm.
as long as I can help an individual be their best, then I'm fulfilled. And that's more than just a year or a 2 year, long-term goal. It's over the course of, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the fulfillment factor for me, if I'm constantly fulfilled and they're constantly fulfilled, then I trust that the results eventually will come.
Nice. So what do you think the main things that make a good coach?
That make a good coach.
Yeah. In your opinion,
What's that?
in your opinion.
I think that you have to be somebody that is personable. I think you have to have empathy. I think you have to have a really good understanding of the balance, and it only comes with experience of the balance between when to, you know, critique or criticize positively somebody to get a result out of them, and also when to be empathetic. And like I said, that does also come with experience. And then I think you have to be, like I said before, just extremely open-minded to be able to change your opinion about certain things, or continue to, learn and understand that maybe what was conceived to be correct or optimal previously is no longer.
Mm,
I think that what I see a lot over the last few years is coaches will come into the industry and have a certain level of success because they are open to learning. And then once they've had that success, it consolidates the fact that they no longer need to specifically put that much effort into
mm,
learning or being personable or putting the time and effort into the athletes. And then that's kind of where they stay. It's almost like if you were I've been really lucky. Like I grew up, around coaches that were football coaches or basketball coaches. So I've always came at coaching from that aspect of I I don't just want to develop this person, and I don't just want to like prescribe and demand them to do things. I want to educate and inform and
mm.
develop this person to be a better person alongside a better athlete, and
Yeah, you don't want to give a
understanding to be
person a
able
fish. You want
to
to teach them how to
actually have
fish.
that.
Yeah. You don't want to give someone like
What's
a fish.
that?
You don't want to give someone a fish. You want to
Yeah,
teach them how to fish so
yeah,
they can get their own
exactly.
fish. Yeah. I know what you're saying. So what do you think the biggest mistake
Yeah,
coaches
that's a
make
good
with
way of putting it.
clients?
Um, at one point earlier on, like I said, I've been doing this for 10 years, and it's easy to fall into the trap of I can do more and I can do more and I can take on more, and here's a little bit more money. But to a certain point, more money becomes more money, and you're not really, unless you're just someone who finds a way to spend exorbitantly all the time, or you live a very lavish lifestyle, like there is a point where it doesn't necessarily fulfill you any further.
Mm,
And I think when you chase that financial progression more than you chase, and it's not to say that you can't want to have, financial success, because, everybody does, but when that becomes the driving force behind why you're doing what you're doing, rather than the results or the fulfillment, like the finance will come.
yeah.
Maybe it will take long, but it will come if you do have those, if you do chase that fulfillment, and if you do chase that result space.
Yeah,
So
I
I think
guess you
people
don't.
trying to,
No, you go.
yeah, chase after a financial position, or be perceived to be a specific way monetarily, rather than just being a good coach.
Yeah. Yeah,
You never
like
got to the stage where you're like, fuck, I've got too many clients. Really, have you ever like got to that stage?
Yeah, probably back in. It's funny now because the point in which I probably thought back then was too many. I probably have more than that now, but I just have such a better way of handling it. I remember, I think I had about, once I trained, so the most I've ever had would have been 100, and that was back when I was half Gen Pop and about half athletes, probably more Gen Pop. This would have been 2022 or so. And I probably 70 from that point would have been too many. And I just like was like, oh no, I can do a little bit more and a little bit more. And you do, you do dilute your service. Like speaking, completely honestly, you do get to a point where you just don't have enough time in the day. It might not be specifically translating through the updates you're giving somebody, but you might reply to a message an hour later, or you might leave it, for this extra amount of time, or you might not get into something in as much of a timely manner, or have as much energy to give to somebody because you've already given it to another person. So I
Yeah.
think I've just figured out where how much energy I have to give, because I'm in this industry as well, and I am also thinking about my own bodybuilding and my own responsibilities and habits that I have as a bodybuilder. So when it's just constantly everything is bodybuilding, it can become very overwhelming at times. So I
Yeah. Have you
have
found it taken away from your personal bodybuilding at all?
not if I hadn't let it. Like there's been times where prior, like last year and whatnot, or not last year, the year before, 2024, kind of went through a period of a couple months where I was almost excusing the fact that I was so busy to, be a little bit more suboptimal with like my habits and my behaviors. Like my sleep would go to shit, or, I'd throw something together quickly instead of properly preparing my meals. Like I was still doing the basic stuff, but you let those like 1%ers slide and you start to see your physique, or even your training performance not be where it is. So there's definitely been times where I've used it being that busy as an excuse, but I think last season, competing at the same time as coaching and competing on stage with my own athletes and having to peak them while I was doing my own, and you know how meticulous Dean is, like, it's not as simple as just walk onto the stage and he's like, away you go. It's like
Yeah.
final, so trying to do those, I'll never feel as busy again as that. Um, but yeah, like I've found a really good set point now where I've got coaches underneath me who work with me as well. And they're fantastic, and they've got their own personalities and they've got their own athletes and teams. And I've been really fortunate that I have been able to grow the business in that capacity rather than just trying to take on more and do more and get more money for
Yeah.
myself, which I don't really care about.
Yeah, you only need enough money so you don't have to worry about the money, so you can do your work with knowing that the bills are paid. As long as you know the bills are paid, you can be all
Yeah,
right.
that's all I just have always just wanted money to be able to, even back, when I first went full time with coaching back in 2022, I was content with just being able to travel to the shows wherever they were, and staying in Airbnb and not worry about it costing this much, or not have to worry about going into the supermarket and having to pay for your groceries and being like, oh, this is going to be tight.
Mm.
That's I'm not someone who, I might buy lavish things from time to time just because, yeah, everyone has those kind of little impulse buys, but I'm not someone who lives beyond my means. I think apart from the London move costing a lot, I live underneath underneath my means.
Mm.
Mm. So, what give us some just insight to your type of ideologies like nutrition, volume, volume sets, high volume, low volume, nutrition, high protein, low protein, fats foods you sort of like associating people with, or, just things that you sort of pick, like if your clients got together, they'd be like, oh, you've got raspberries and meal six. Yeah, me too. Something that's like what makes you like your coaching style.
Oh, I don't know if it's necessarily coaching style, but if you're talking about like a trivial meal that I might program more than often, I don't mind programming. I've convinced and turned a lot of athletes onto the chicken breast, core,
Yeah.
banana, dates. The chicken breast with the core is the one that seems to surprise a lot of people.
Yeah.
Even Dean fucking can't stand me making that meal, but uh, it does go well. If you cook
Is
the
it
chicken
plain
right,
rice flour?
what's that?
Is it plain rice flour?
Now you've got whey in there. Like
Okay, yeah, right.
you have flavor. Yeah.
And the chicken goes in it?
Yeah, chicken goes in it. You've got your sweet, like your bananas or your raspberries or whatever. You got to
Yeah.
try it.
Okay,
It's a
I'll have
good
to
way to
try
get it
it.
in.
Yeah.
And obviously
Chocolate
you don't
chocolate
need,
chicken.
yeah, I've done all sorts, especially when I was in prep. You get to that point where you just try and shit, to see what sticks and what feels good. And I remember I was doing chicken breast, cinnamon, I was doing like a hazelnut core, with some like Thai rice cakes and some chocolate, like 0 calorie, you know, um, Walden Farms type stuff. So I'm
There's
lucky
no
that
Why does
my
that have to be
digestion,
rules?
what's that?
There's no rules.
Yeah, I'm just lucky that my digestion handles anything, whereas coaching wise has to be, there's probably a little bit more specificity. I can't just throw that meal at somebody, but
Mm.
I think in terms of something that's probably more tangible with my coaching is I am very much a coach that works for the athlete rather than the athlete. I think I've consulted with a lot of athletes who seem that they're coached by coaches who the coach wants to make things easier for themselves. And yeah, there's certain things that you want to do to make your job more manageable or make it more sustainable. But, if I'm coaching someone, I'm much more open to potentially doing something that I might not feel is from an educational standpoint or in practice necessarily most optimal, but if it's significantly beneficial for the way in which an athlete likes to
Mm.
do something or a meal they like to have, someone might suggest, hey, I want to have this, and I'm never a coach that's like text, but significantly better for them from a psychological perspective, then I'm going to probably lean towards what they're going to enjoy more, as long as it will continue to, progress them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Obviously, it's all individual, but there's, like you said, there's always some principles you like to sort of try to sneak in there without them knowing. Like, yeah, you might have a
Yeah,
client that's
it
like,
would be very similar to what you would have heard.
yeah, yeah. It's like you have a client that's like, oh, I love having one meal a day. You're like, I kind of want at least three. Like, some people like that.
With
So,
your own
Yeah,
personal diet,
yeah. There's
with your
a
own
fine
personal
balance.
diet, Taylor, I think I remember seeing you dieting on like
What is it?
higher fats last year.
Yeah, I have always been someone who can grow quite significantly on very low food. I mean, very low food for I'm
Yeah.
110, 109 right now. I sit between. I mean, my off season's never gone more than what it is right now, which is like 4,000 just. I think I'm 4,010. It's like 320 protein, 525 carb, and 70 fat. So for 110 kilogram bodybuilder, it's not necessarily anything significant. But I have to diet very, very hard.
Yep.
So yeah, we tried a few different things. My refeeds earlier in prep, when I wasn't super flat, more so consisted of like a caloric escalation through fat. So Dean would throw up the fats just to get that caloric escalation up and refeed me that way because he just didn't want it to come through carbohydrates just yet because there was still enough, that we were consuming. Or he wanted to dig a little bit more from I suppose, a glycolytic standpoint. But yeah, we were initially refeeding with almost like fat loading days earlier on in the prep, and then I got to that position which I'd never really got to before, where I was kind of conditioned enough that you'd put 500 grams of carbs, 600 grams of carbs, 700 grams of carbs in, and I'd start to drop, a pretty significant amount of body mass, the following day. So it was really interesting. I basically started the prep 10 months prior to competing, at 150 gram carb, and it was pretty much intermittently that until about a month out. And then Dean was like, happy with where the condition is. Let's start putting food back in. So it went from 150 grams of carbs for 10 months to I think I had a 1200 day in there somewhere. And so
Man.
I was
it's like a
loving
week's worth of
life.
carbs in a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was absolutely loving life by the end of it. It was
Yeah.
just like I wasn't even dieting anymore. But um, yeah, I just have to work hard to get into the condition. I think it's more so like my thyroid seems to be like pretty maladaptive, and I've also had some issues in the past with like stimulants, so I can't lean and rely on a whole lot of lipolytics and stuff like that either. Um, so yeah, I just have to work hard to diet, and I was just prepared for it rather than not. And
Yep.
yeah, if you want it that bad, I guess you'll do what you need to do.
Mm. Yeah, you would have got used to it anyway. When you like once you sort of start running low carb for a while, your hunger
The
would have.
cognitively, it was probably the only thing that was really challenging was cognitively, like
Mm,
working. Obviously, I was coaching athletes into the same season as myself and into the same show. Like I had four girls, four guys, three girls on the same South Australian state show that I was doing. Obviously, you were there, so
yeah.
um, that was challenging. Even just throughout the prep, trying to deal with the demands of what I needed to do from a psychological perspective, and then also cognitively be um, stimulated enough to coach them. But thankfully, I just bided my time well, and I think it all went well.
Yeah, dude. You look good up there. That's the best I've seen
Thanks, man. It was
you.
the longest. It was the longest first timer ever. Fucking 10 years training and finally got up there.
But you done it. It's fucking
Yeah.
done. You obviously got no future plans to get back on there anytime soon with your
Nothing
workload.
set in stone. Like I'm still the goal for me, and pretty much as soon as I jumped off stage, Brett and whatnot, obviously the judges and stuff, because I came first in the first timers. which wasn't overly competitive anyway. But and then first in novice, which was a good run, and then second to I forget his name, Nathan from
Feckle?
Melbourne.
Is it Nathan Feckle?
Yeah, I think
Nathan
so.
Feckle, yeah.
Yeah, he came over from Melbourne. Really good bloke and incredible
Yeah, Nathan,
physique.
yeah, he's sponsored by Powerhouse or whatever.
Yeah, so it was me, Nathan, me, and Lee. I was also coaching, and they just said to me, like, we really love the shape and the aesthetic of the physique and the look. It just you just need to be bigger. So I was 102, and I think I know that Lee was 121-ish,
Mm,
and then Nathan, I think, probably was in the 110 to 12. So I think really Dean and I just said, like, by the time I get back on stage, I'd like to probably be uh, around that kind of 110 to 112 mark on stage. So I've got
mm,
some growing ahead. I mean, I'm only 110 now.
Yeah.
So probably not until 2028, but I'm coach first, bodybuilder second. So,
mm.
I'd never turn down success competing personally, but it's not something I'm necessarily chasing significantly. I'm very much capable and comfortable with just accepting whatever my potential is, and that if that's an amateur overall, then I'm stoked. If that's back of you know an amateur show, then that's fine as well.
You can only do what you can do. It's a, genetic sport.
Yeah, exactly. So
And, look, you're winning through stage through your clients anyway, vicariously.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
That's something I've touched on. Like, it does feel like you're involved competitively in every season when you're a coach that has reoccurring athletes in each season because you're invested in it, and it's been a long build up to each and every season. So it's not as if I'm missing a competitive desire or anything. I did feel different myself being up there to obviously coaching when you're standing by the side and whatnot, and you've manipulated a lot of things, but still, I'm grateful that I'm able to kind of, like you said, vicariously compete through my athletes each and every season.
Yeah. 'Cause I know Liam's competing soon. I watch a bit of his YouTube.
Yeah, I've been trying to get into dive into the Adelaide show, but I don't think it's going to happen.
He wouldn't fly back here.
He's got to
Well,
happen.
didn't he say he has something soon for his family, sister's birth? Or
I think his sister's. I think it's his sister's birthday, and I think she's having a baby.
you having a
So
baby or something? Yeah.
he's in Melbourne now. I think he flew in yesterday, and then he will be down for the SA show. But I mean, he could jump in. He could jump in
Mm,
and probably do really well. Like, he's just on another level now,
mm,
classic. But I think that he's put in so much work that when he does step back on stage, he wants it to be like the utmost display of what he can represent, rather than like just do it because he might win.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
He's another one that does the chicken and the flavored cream rice. But I love his
Mhm.
food because me and him, but we all we talk about together when we message is purple sweet potato. Fucking love
Yeah,
that shit.
God,
Fucking best.
that's the best part about Thailand.
So good, man. And Japan, just getting it
Yeah.
out of 7-Eleven baked. Oh, fucking purple sweet potato. Cam won't give it to me. He only gives me white because there's more potassium. And I'm like, that's bullshit, mate. Purple's supreme.
It's damn tasty, and it's convenient in Thailand because you can just chuck it in the microwave and
So
make it.
good. I'll eat that shit all day when I move to Thailand.
Yeah, no, it's
yeah.
Thailand's it's a great place to be if you want to be locked in.
Yeah, I'm getting close to moving there with the way our chemical products are going here. Um,
Yeah,
so
it's a whole
yeah, because
different can of
especially
worms.
what Liam tells me he can get delivered at his door within half an hour. I'm like, man, why am I still here?
Yeah, it's unreal. Like, even getting off the plane, like, I went back there. I think when Liam was doing the podcast with you guys, I just
Yeah, you were there
arrived.
because I was going to ask you to jump on.
Yeah, I was there, and I'd messaged the contact who gets us the supps, and I just said, "Oh, I'm coming in, and I need a few things just to tie me over while I'm here." And I didn't hear back from them. But you always have, when you're there, you're talking to them.
Mm.
And I got off the plane, got in a little Uber, and got to the apartment that I have in Thailand. And waiting at the lobby was the person to give me the subs. And I'm like, what the
So good.
fuck? And they're just like, oh, I just transfer it. So yeah, yeah, it's like Amazon Prime, Prime, Prime.
Mm. And you literally don't even need to cook. Like you can buy what you need there on the day. Like cooked chicken
It's
breast, plain, sweet
oh,
potato. It's so easy.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
because
mean,
I'm
Liam
literally in one
probably
of the
say, but
worst countries
Yeah.
for
Have you
it's
been
just
there,
like
Cam? Have you been to Thailand?
only like when I was like maybe 19, I think.
Oh.
So
I've only
yeah,
been there once,
20
but I
years
haven't
ago.
been to Bangkok. I need to go to Bangkok next time. I only
yeah,
went to Chang. I think it was Chang. Yeah.
it's like GTA but for bodybuilding.
Yeah, it's the best. Um, So obviously you've already gone over how rewarding the process is of coaching and going vicarious with them and what you get out of it. What would you say? What have you got any the biggest challenging coaching competitors through prep is, or the maybe the biggest challenge for you, or the biggest challenge you see that people always face repeatedly? Something you see that's always repeated.
The I think the biggest challenge for me as a coach since I've gone from, well, I'm 27 now, from 18 years old all the way through to probably more so prep coaching,
Yeah,
um, is probably I've always found it challenging coaching females and having the empathy that I do,
mm,
but also still knowing what needs to be done for a female. Like you might have to put them through like what you deem to be a health or somewhat of a health compromising position to achieve a goal, but that's what they've hired you for. They've hired for you to, assist them achieving success in competing. And I've always found I've probably earlier on been too passive with what making those decisions to be a little bit more aggressive. Whereas as you go through more of those experiences, you become, more understanding that this is the goal, and
yeah,
the best thing that you can do as a coach is tell them why you're specifically doing something like that, and um, you know, knowing how to pull them out of that position that might be deemed to be, physiologically compromising for a specific period of time, but also learning how to, only put them in that position when it is necessary, for a specific outcome. So just finding the balance, and that doesn't have to be, just resolved to females, but finding the balance between being empathetic because you know what you're asking, especially being a competitor or a bodybuilder yourself, you know what you're
mm,
asking of someone can sometimes be, fucking debilitating. Even if they're in, you might have someone come to you and just say, I don't have anything more to give. And, you know, they're not right where they need to exactly be, but you still need, to put them in a position where they can achieve success. So just having more of those honest conversations in, I, need you to do X, Y, and Z, and this is why. And that finding that balance definitely. But yeah, so for me personally, finding the balance between empathy and direction and aggression, and in terms of something that I see competitors probably find the most challenging. Um,
when you were saying about the being empathetic as well, that's obviously highly individual to the clients. You know, you have to find
yeah,
how you can approach each client, which
yeah.
is
I mean,
which is fun in itself.
I would talk to Liam very differently than I'd talk
Yeah,
to a Courtney Boswell or a Kristen Ellis or whoever it may be. So I've always said like coaching with that level of personability or empathy, you almost have to be like a chameleon where you change your
yeah,
personality to the individual. When you try to have an individual receive your personality. Like my personality wouldn't resonate with every single athlete that I coach, but I can resonate or at least find a point of entry to resonate with their
yeah,
personality. That creates that connection, and I really value the ability to have that relationship. Like you don't have to be best friends with every athlete you coach, and you don't won't necessarily agree with positions they take on certain things, but if you can find a common ground and you can access a piece of their personality through the way in which you communicate, then I think you just create that. It creates that much more buy-in because they genuinely value you as a coach, but also as a person. And I think Dean's really good at that. Like he knows, how to be kind of autonomic and empathetic while also being very calm, and having that kind of like he challenges you a little bit with like even it might be a thought process you may have to something, but then also understanding why you may see something the way you see it or do something the way you do it. So just having that ability to be personable is definitely individually specific, as you said.
mm,
Um, but yeah, I think with specific competitors that I might not coach or because I think I do a very good job at this, at least nowadays, is the probably a first timer or people, athletes underestimating how challenging it will be to actually sustain a prep and
Mm.
also get into the condition that is, I think you can look very conditioned in the gym and in side lighting or, nice gym lighting in a posing room, but it's another thing to then have that translate to stage when you're nervous and you're stressed and, there's a million things going on and you haven't been able to pump up the way you want to pump up. And, so just actually being genuinely conditioned to the level in which is going to translate on stage, I think is very different to photos in the gym. And I think a lot of competitors probably see themselves in the gym, and I've probably even been guilty of it years ago coaching. It's like, oh, my competitors posted that story. They look fantastic. We'll hold it there. Like I know how good they're going to look. And then they go out and walk out on stage and you're like, you're just that much more.
Yeah.
So
I,
expectations, yeah.
I
yeah.
tell you what, like bringing up first time competitors, how often do you hear, "Oh, I'm gonna come in and shock them first time," and you're like, "No, you're not." How many times do you hear
I
that?
think I just don't take those people on anymore. Like I
Yeah,
don't take the I'm here to just, be the second coming of, Chris Bumstead in bodybuilding, 17-year-old junior that, has just his mates pump him up all the time. Like
yeah,
I really try to be, again, I'll be empathetic to an individual and why they may feel that way or think that way, but I also think I'm really good at giving someone a genuine, realistic expectations of what they will be able to achieve, even if they are exceptionally high level. Like it is going to be a multi-year process more often than not. And, like we've referred to Liam, he would have had mates in his ear when he was competing in Adelaide, oh, you're going to win your pro card and you're going to turn pro in classic and yada, yada, yada. And if you buy into that, when that doesn't occur, you almost feel demoralized because you had this expectation of something that wasn't actually reality or had the ability to be reality. Whereas you have that experience of being there, but knowing you can get better. You then take that to the next season, and you take that to the next season. I've always been and have looked at the athletes I coach and the way I operate my own coaching is like a team that, for instance, whether it's basketball or football, you might have like a young group of individuals that as they develop, they're going to get better and better and better. And when, my 20-year-old athletes or 21-year-old athletes are, 27 or 28, that's when it really starts to come together and they, start to transition from, a junior or a reasonably good competitor to like a high level amateur. Like, obviously Dave isn't someone I coach, but that's a really good example of that as well. You just see this individual that's, you know, good. He's got something there, takes a little bit the next season, takes another scalp the next season, and then all of a sudden it all comes together
mm.
overnight where it almost feels like that's the case for a lot of these individuals, but it's actually been that multi-year process of just repetitive consistency over such a long period of time.
So I'll touch on two things there. One, like you're saying, with the different hats with different clients, we're basically managers, supervisors.
Yeah.
And every time we go to, our clients are basically workers. We got to go around and handle everyone different to get the best out of them. That's why I guess people that have maybe come from leadership roles or whatever are probably really good at coaching and managing people. That's because that's what we do. We manage people.
I
And
think so.
then the second
I
thing I was going to say was, oh, now for what were you just talking about?
the expectations of like the multi-year process.
Yeah, now I've lost my train of thought.
But
Just
yeah, no, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying around like the people managing. I was fortunate enough to have like leadership positions at school or be the captain of footy teams and stuff like that. And, as I said, be mentored indirectly by Dean through, I started working with Dean when I was 20 in
mm,
2000. Well, actually, I think I was like 19 or 20 in 2020. And he was still obviously, still incredibly educated and incredibly,
yeah,
likable and personable, but he wasn't necessarily like the Dean McKillop that everybody knows
mm,
now. So being able to kind of almost invest in myself by investing in Dean that early pay has I'd be no matter how much success I have or how many pro athletes I hopefully eventually have, like it will always come down to me crediting Dean and those influences for being highly
yeah.
valuable for
Because
me.
you and Cam both would have seen Dean evolve because you've both been with him for ages.
Yeah,
Cam is in,
since
yeah.
2019. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say was basically bodybuilding is like compound interest, right? You're putting in your repayments every week or every session going to the gym, recovering, and all of a sudden there's that one breakout year, and all of a sudden you've got enough in there to just fucking
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever
5%
had a client
makes a
or
difference.
someone sign up with you and their like expectation of what bodybuilding is like just didn't line up with what it actually like really is?
Do I have that occur?
Yeah, yeah,
I have consults all the time. Like everybody that inquires will either consult with me or Jake, who's one of my coaches, or Jeremy. Obviously, Ghost Man, you know
Yeah.
Jeremy.
Yeah, he's at the Kilo now. He's PTing at the new
Yeah,
powerhouse
yeah,
camp.
he is too. Um, so yeah, it's something I'll pretty much like address immediately if I hear someone kind of, verbalizing something in a specific way where like I'll consult with individuals who are like, oh, I was working with this coach and they were fucking shit and I could have turned pro and blah 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 blah. It's like, okay, let's actually like peel back the layers here and see, what it is. And usually it's something psychological probably. And I've even gotten into arguments with people on consultations just because I don't necessarily agree with the way in which they're,
yeah,
touching on things. But the younger, I usually think, and I would have been the same way back in 2020, 2019. You think what's going to occur in terms of your own development is going to happen a lot quicker than what it will happen. But you still, even though it doesn't, you still sustain that progression anyway because you know you're eventually going to get there. So
mm,
I and I put up a close friend story of this the other day just because I was talking about it on Instagram. But I said something to the likes of, I think that the individuals who you work with or bring onto your coaching directly affect how fulfilled or how enjoyable that process is. Like if I was to focus on just financially bringing in as many people on as possible, and they might have that association to, oh, bodybuilding is this, and I can, like I've had athletes who've never gone to the gym before back, years ago, who the thing that they say to me is, I want to compete in the Mr. Olympia. I'm like, okay, the distorted reality there
mm.
is huge, but they don't know any better. Like they don't know the process of how difficult this is to actually have occur and how genetically elite you need to be, you know, in the first place to even, have the level of development to achieve that, not to mention the temperament and the, ability to be consistent over such a long period of time. So yeah, I have those conversations all the time, but I think people profit off that, to be honest. I think there's a lot of coaches who will feed into someone's ego and go, oh yeah, come on board, like we'll get you there. Whereas I'm definitely more, this is what the expectation that I have for you is, this is what I think the reality is, this is how long I think it will take. And if you are open to do that work for that period of time, then by all means, I'd want to bring them on. But
Yeah,
yeah, I
I
think
think where a lot of
it's
people go
distorted.
wrong is the like the level of compliance or the level of consistency, like
Yeah.
for years on end.
Yeah. And you see it as a coach.
Yeah, it's just I don't think people like they see the bodybuilders, but they don't see what the day-to-day life is.
They think
Mhm.
it is just, and not everybody, but I think there's thinking you're 100% adherent and compliant and consistent, and then there's actually being 100% habitual to the point in which I almost think that the better athlete you are, or the more experienced you are as an athlete, the less you actually have to think about the behaviors in which you're doing because they are just autonomous. Like they are ingrained within you. You know that tracking this and not, just throwing it to the side and putting a little bit extra or these types of things like you said before with the compounding interest, like that works in reverse as well. Like if you're doing these negative small, which might not be anything significant in isolation, but over time, you weigh something, you add an extra 50 grams to something, or you have an extra free meal you're not supposed to have, or you miss a session that you're not supposed to miss, it accumulates in this compounding interest. And in the space of a week or a month, doesn't make a large difference. But over the course of 2 years, you've then seen you've left a lot of progression on the table, and that's I think a lot of athletes don't necessarily because you can be 80% adherent and still progress. But
Hmm.
I usually try to have the conversation of, okay, you might still be progressing at 80% or 75%, but how much progression are you leaving on the table? Like, what could you be taking instead of if you were 100% adherent? And with my athletes, I usually try to, especially the younger ones, like use the example of say they had two exact versions of themselves, and one was 100% consistent and repetitive and, you know, progressive for a year, and the other one was, 70%. And they'll both progress, but that one that's 100% adherent is going to outpace that other one. And eventually, when, it's been a year or 2 years, they're going to be very far apart. And I don't think a lot of competitors or athletes look at it from okay, but how much could I be progressing? They're just looking at, oh, I've had progression.
Or like I can get away with this.
Yeah, I can get away with it. Is it?
I can
Yeah,
get away with this
exactly.
and like yeah, stuff like that.
And then
Mm,
it gets to stage and they're like, oh, I'm third call out or I'm second call out, and they might have the ability to be first, but those behaviors that they, exhibited in the off season or even in prep, if it was, oh, I just won't tell my coach about this free meal, or I'll miss my steps by, 500 on this day, or, I'll change my, you know, whatever it may be to something else. Like it just adds up.
mm, yeah. Yeah, and obviously those people are the ones that kick themselves when they lose as well.
Yeah, they're the ones that have the biggest explosion of emotions when they don't do what they thought they were going to.
Mm.
I'm sure Dean's experienced that occasionally.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. There's heaps we're going to go on with your athletes and moving to London and more life stuff, but we'll have to do a part two because you got to go to the gym and I got to eat, and I don't want
Yeah,
to take up too much of your time because we
no,
are busy. It is prep season, and I'm sure you got things to do because you got heaps of clients. But yeah, I would love to have you back on for a part two.
yeah, no, just let me know and I'll jump on.
So you're
Yeah,
gonna be there in Adelaide?
Yeah, I'll be over.
All right, cool, man. I'll see you down there.
yeah.
See you
I
there.
told him to come to Dave's house with us.
Yeah, so you're not coming up to Queensland this weekend?
No, no.
All right, awesome. Yeah.
There. First time, haven't been to Queensland in years. But I'll be there season C. I don't even know how many. It's too many.
Yeah.
Are you gonna go to the Olympia this year?
Maybe, given I'm in London, it's much closer to get there than it is from here. So
Yeah,
probably,
yeah.
yeah.
I might go. Yeah, we'll see. I don't want to
Because I
miss out
know
on the
like
fun. It's gonna be so many
Dave
Aussies
and
there.
Dave and everyone's doing the amateur and stuff, aren't they?
Yeah, and you got
Yeah.
Ethan. Ethan's qualified.
Yeah,
Tom will probably qualify. Cam will probably qualify.
yeah.
So
It'll be good.
yeah,
It'll be good.
it's one you don't want to miss. Like we actually got people to go for.
And I've never been either, so it'd be a good year to go.
Yeah, I went to the one in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
That was so good. It was so chilled. Like it was like a huge homemaker center. Parking's easy. It's like, yeah, here's $10. You go park your car in the car park. Walk in. There's like 9 expos going on other than Olympia. That's how big this building was.
Yeah. Everything's just that much easier in America. It's just
Yeah,
bigger and easier.
but not being like all the bodybuilders loved it not being in Vegas. They loved
Yeah.
that it was just easy to drive around. Because
Yeah,
I
true.
literally in the city of Orlando, I drove in like it was Adelaide, parked in a car park, and just walked to the stadium and watched the Orlando Magic game. It'd be
Yeah, yeah.
crazy.
That's how I felt about. I went to Boston. I mean, I did America and did it all, but America just seemed like a bigger version of Oz, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like, so
with
Yeah,
um,
I
shitter
love
more
that.
fatter foods.
yeah, just with the portion sizes 10 times
Mm.
the size of
Yeah, when you
here.
go, they're like, oh, fountain, and you get a fountain, and the cup's like
Yeah.
fucking this big. You're like, Jesus.
Even going to the movies and like, you get popcorn and then that fucking slam like 15 pumps of butter on it, and you're
Yeah.
just like, Jesus.
And the cereal, it's too big for a box in the shopping center. It comes in a bag.
Yeah,
Yeah,
bags of cereal.
that's
Like
insane.
dog food.
Yeah. All right, boys. Cheers for coming on again, Taylor. And
Cheers,
like I
man.
said, we'll have you back on. But hope everyone enjoyed that one, and we'll cross more about you and your athletes on the next one. But
Easy.
enjoy the weekend. With all three of
You
us
too.
have got a lot going on with shows. But yeah, hope everyone enjoyed it, and yeah, catch you on the next one.
So
All
yeah,
right.
see you guys soon. Thanks for having me.